Understood. Here is your text, exactly as it is. Support to a light group, all light troops stationed in Lithuania. The summit must also send a clear message that NATO stands with Ukraine. We must show that NATO stands with Ukraine through continuous support to its armed forces and Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic aspirations. In the coming months, one crucial objective will be to substantially increase military support to Ukraine, to ensure deterrence on the ground, and to prepare conditions for the future negotiations on peace. Ukraine's power must be significantly strengthened, and it now falls primarily on Europeans and Ukraine's closest neighbors and friends to make it happen. Ukraine also needs our investments in its defense industry. We must shift from reactive weight to solid military support, pre-planned deliveries of long-range artillery advanced air defense systems, and drone capabilities. They'll still need Progress 1 enhanced EU military support to Ukraine, with the whole goal to supply them with 2 million large-caliber shells. In times like these, unity is most important. Together we're strong, and I'm happy that we had very productive frank conversation with our closest friends, and I hope it will be very helpful. Looking forward to the summit. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I will now invite President of Poland to continue. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by thanking my friend President of Lithuania, Gitanas Nausėda, for organizing this year's Bucharest 9 summit in the wonderful city of Vilnius. I'm also very pleased that NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and the President of Ukraine, Zelenskyy, participated in our deliberations. Moreover, I'm glad to emphasize the involvement of representatives from the Nordic countries in our discussion. This is indeed an important step towards building an integrated northeastern NATO security space. The upcoming NATO summit in the will take plainly 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So this is an excellent moment to discuss our expectations ahead of this very important gathering. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that we're facing critical threats and challenges from Russia. In response, we have to make NATO stronger but also fairer, having in mind Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine and its aggressive attitudes towards the West. We must do everything to develop appropriate instruments that will deter the Kremlin's neo-imperial ambitions, especially here on the eastern flank. That is why your talks focused primarily on the urgent need to increase defensive spending and on developing the production capabilities of national defense industries. I would like to recall even before last year's NATO summit in Washington, I proposed to raise the defense spending by NATO members to the minimum level of 3% of their GDP. 3 months ago, I submitted to Secretary General Mark Rutte a request to raise this issue in The Hague. And today I'm glad to see that we'll agree on that and that our ambitions are even higher, up to 5% of GDP on defense. We hope that the allies will follow into our footsteps. Another key element of our discussions was strengthening the transatlantic relations and the strategic alliance with USA among our partners in the region. There is a widespread understanding that Europe must take greater responsibility for its own security. But it is critically important to do it not by wingmanagers of European autonomy, but in close cooperations with the United States. We also had an opportunity to exchange information with President of Ukraine, Zelenskyy. During our conversation, we addressed every important issues regarding further support for Ukraine in its fight against Russia. Continuing our assistance to Ukraine in military, political, and humanitarian is critical to security in Europe, and is Ukraine's integrations with European Euro-Atlantic structures, including NATO. Ladies and gentlemen, for today's meeting got a special significance, and it was my last opportunity to speak at this forum as President of the Republic of Poland. I have to emphasize that co-creating and later co-developing this format has been one of the most important and valuable aspects of my presidency. Over the past 10 years, the B9 has been an effective tool, strengthening the voice of the eastern flank countries within NATO and helping us shape the alliance deterrence and defense policy. I'm convinced that even after my term as President of Poland, Bucharest will remain the best platform for coordinating security positions of our countries, allowing us to better manage the threats and challenges waste. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. President. Mr. President Zelenskyy, please deliver your statement. Thank you so much. Again, as Mr. President, it's important to be here in Vilnius today. Dear friends, partners, we all want the same thing, to stop the Russian war, to bring real peace, and to make security last. That's what we're all working for first. Informed our partners about the situation at the front. We also talked about our operation inside Russia, which has seriously weakened their military. Operation Spiderweb showed that modern war really looks like and why it is so important to stay ahead with technology. Allure joint investments in drone production, our shared battlefield experience, everything we're doing together with our partners, it's making Europe stronger. Today, we agreed with our partners on several joint decisions that will strengthen our defense even more. I thank everyone for your willingness to help. There will be new packages. There will be new investments in Ukraine's weapon production, especially drones. Ukraine can produce much more, and we see partner investments as a way to give those partners priority access to our stock arsenals after this war. Second, I thank you all for our shared view of what diplomacy needs in order to succeed. Today, we see the situation clearly. If Russia turns the Istanbul meeting into an empty talk, there must be a new level of pressure, new sanctions, and not just from Europe. We need to work on joint sanctions at the G7 level, including with the United States and with everyone in the world who wants peace. It's very, very important that each of our partners supports this exact approach. Sanctions against Russia are necessary. It's IMPO. Artan to seriously limit Russia's oil trade and its use of tankers. Sanctions, including secondary ones, tariffs and rice caps, can work and push Russia toward peace. Without pressure, Putin will just keep playing games with everyone who wants this war to end. Talks in Istanbul just ended, and I'm waiting for the Minister of Merkel report. They exchange documents through the Turkish side, and we're preparing a new release of prisoners of the war. Third, the upcoming NATO summit can strengthen Europe's security, or if it ends the wrong signal, it will only encourage Putin. The key to lasting peace is clear. The aggressor must not receive any reward, for where Putin must get nothing that would justify his aggression. Any reward would only show him that war pays off. Geopolitical gains are just as important to Russia as money or territory. If Putin is allowed to decide who joins NATO where, and NATO infrastructure can or can't be, then Russia's appetite for war will only grow. Our shared goal is the opposite to completely end Russia's hunger for aggression. Ukraine is doing its part, and I am grateful to all partners who are doing theirs, and we must CSON United Euro-Atlantic community. The NATO summit in June is the right place and the right time to send a clear message. Russia will not get anything from this war. Strong decisions are needed. Decisions for Europe, not Putin, will need to work together to make this really happen, and it's doable. Thank you, everyone who help us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Zelenskyy, President of Romania. The floor is yours now. Promised the first opportunity to participate as a president, and I've been very honored to be here. And I have to thank also to our host, very nice. Understood. Here is your text, exactly as it is. Organization Sum book started 10 years ago. It was just after Russia attacked Crimea, and at that moment it was a potential threat of Russia against European nations. And UMIT was a proposal in order that the countries on the eastern border or eastern flank of NATO have a common voice. Now, youth potential trade became real. We haven't war in Ukraine for more than 3 years, and Haller countries faced a set of hybrid actions. So it's reality, and forest members of Bucharest 9, and also for our Nordic allies, would have the same concerns. I'm so AC, most part of discussion were in order to prepare the Hug Summit, which will be in three weeks from now. And I'm very pleased that most of our participants agreed on very important things like we need a stronger NATO, we need a stronger transatlantic connection. We have to not only to increase our expenses in defense, but also being able to produce military equipment in order to protect ourselves. And also that, as I said, the threat is not only classical military, but it's we have every important hybrid actions against our country. I'm also very pleased that all the participants agreed that we have to continue to support Ukraine. Sumas a Romanian interest, I emphasize that we have a long-term concern on the security in the whole Black Sea area, including a Republic of Moldova, and a thank to our partner that they continue to support Public Mold and his European integration process. And finally, I'm very pleased that everybody agreed that the next summit be organized in Bucharest next year. Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Prime Minister. It's time for your statement. Thank you. And dear Janice, thank you for hosting us today, and thank you for inviting the Nordic countries to join you here today in Vilnius. Today's meeting has been about one thing and one thing only, the security of our countries and the security of our continent, deterrence and defense. The threat from Russia against all of you is real and it's serious. Russia is continuing the war in Ukraine. Putin is talking about peace during the day and bumping at night. We see a more aggressive Russia approach in the Baltic Sea region, and it is assessed by that, Danish Defense Intelligence Service, that Russia sees itself in conflict with the West and is preparing for war against NATO. It's therefore crucial that we take bold and necessary decisions at the NATO summit. In the hacking only 3 weeks from now, in my mind and what we have discussed today, there's only one way forward. We need to invest massively in our collective security, all of us. And we need to do it fast. NATO is by far the strongest military alliance in history. And so our starting point must be to focus on what is needed to continue to be so to secure deterrence and our ability to defend ourselves. But I have to say that Russia is not deterred merely by us agreeing on a new defensive spending target. We need to deliver actual capabilities, and we need to do it fast. We must make sure that NATO always has the full range of capability necessary to deter and to defense against any threat against our countries. And at the same time, we need to continue our strong and steadfast support for Ukraine's brave fight for freedom. Let me be very frank. We have to donate what is needed on the battlefield. We had to provide more financing for arms. Production directly going into Ukraine. We'll already have a mechanism that works, and I think we have to implement stronger sanctions against Russia. It goes for the Shadow Fleet. Recently, we listed almost 200 additional vessels from the Russian Shadow Fleet, but more have to come against the Shadow Fleet, against Russian banks' financial sector. And I think we have to end any remaining dependency on Russian energy, including oil, gas, and nuclear energy. And to add on more thing, lower the oil cap. I think all that on the table would put the necessary pressure on Russia to get to the table and actually negotiate on peace. And why is that? Because Ukraine deserves peace. But the peace must be comprehensive, it must be just, and it must be lasting. And it has to respect the serenity of and territorial integrity of Ukraine. I'm sorry to say, I think until now we haven't seen any signs that Russia is willing to actually commit any of that key task at the moment. Has to put Ukraine in the strongest possible situation and position on the battlefield and on at the negotiation table. Europe, of course, in. Deeds a strong and independent Ukraine, I believe that once again the coming month will be paramount, and we haven't got much time, and therefore we need commitment to take the right decisions on behalf of all Europeans. So now, thank you so much, Ms. Secretary General. The floor is yours. Thank you, President Nosodiernus. Thank you for hosting the B9 Nordic Summit here in Vienna, US. It is a pleasure, always a pleasure to be back here in Lithuania. Lithuania is a staunch ally and continues to lead by example. You invest more than 4% of GDP in defense this year. And I'll come your plans to spend between 5 and 6 cents starting from next year. I think this sends an incredibly powerful message of commitment to our collective defense, and it also sets an example for our other allies. On this stage and in our meetings today, it's clear that the commitment to collective defense is strong. We have had a productive day of meetings as we continue to prepare for the summit. In Dake, we're facing the most dangerous security environment in decades. Russia's war of aggression continues. Terrorist threats persist. We're not at war, but we're at peace either. So we must continue to strengthen our deterrence and defense, and that means pivoting towards a full war fighting. Here is your text, exactly as it is. Readiness, providing significantly more forces that are well-trained, well-equipped, and supported with logistics, sustainment, and ammunition. We continue to count on the B9 and our Nordic allies to play a key role in these important efforts. At the D Summit, I expect allies to demonstrate their enduring commitment to our collective defense by deciding to boost defense industrial production and increase defense investment. And this is purely simply essential to our security, and so is delivering on the new ambitious capability targets that allies are expected to agree later this week when the defense ministers will meet there in Brussels, another in Brussels, but in Brussels. Today, we also discussed Ukraine, a key priority for the summit in. We continue to support Ukraine. We know that a strong sovereign Ukraine is essential for your Atlantic security, so have about 3 weeks left until the NATO summit in the hand. I look forward to working with all eyes to ensure we deliver for our 1 billion people. Dear Katanas, thank you again for your hospitality, your leadership, and your unwaverings. Omitment to our audience, thank you, Ms. Secretary General. Dear journalists, we only have time for one question, which can be addressed to all the leaders or some of them. Please indicate that Martina go ahead. Please hello. Martina Pisita News Agency ELA, I have a question to all of you. So with the announcement that America will review its true presence in Europe, there has been some concern about our reduction in United States capabilities on NATO's eastern flank. So in this context, and given the fact that the current administration of the United States has reduced America's focus on Europe, what can be expected at the upcoming summit, hey, thank you, I think we can do in the same order, made your statement. I will start, I don't want to base my assumptions on the rumors. I would trust official information about the possible reduction of United States presence in Europe. So far, we have 1,000 U.S. soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder with the soldiers of Germany, Norway, and other EFP countries. And we're ready to provide all necessary conditions, even to increase this number, if there would be politic. All will from the new American administration. So far, we're working on a broad range of activities. And I would like to remind you, last week, 100 meters from here in the Cathedral Square, the Chancellor Frederick Merz inaugurated the German Brigade full-scale brigade will be deployed in Lithuania until 2027. And we're progressing on the all necessary infrastructure for German soldiers here. And those are my assumptions right now. So we're highly interested that United States focus on Europe, Rima. It's because this is a very important element of our collective security. And I hope that the summit will bring very positive news to this field. Thank you, Ms. President Duda. What would be your answer to the question? I can only answer that I had a few opportunities to talk with President Trump during last 6-7 months. Talked also with his secretaries, especially with Secretary Hazatin, and I have no information about any ideas of withdrawing military for American military forces, U.S. Army forces from our part of Europe from Eastern flanks. So this is my answer, President Zelenskyy. Can you please give your views, or you can just refer to them now, but then maybe we should hear from you, okay? No, but let me be very straightforward here. Since January, I get 2 questions from European allies. Question 1 is the U.S. still committed to NATO? The answer is committed to NATO, committed to Article 5. And this has been many times repeated by President Trump in many meetings. So my only suggestion to many European colleagues is put on your television so that you can hear him say this. Don't ask me, he's very clear. Out this, but there's an expectation. The expectation is that we're going to spend more because we need to spend more for our defense. But also, it is because it is fair to equalize our spending with the spending the U.S. is doing currently. Second question, but okay. But then they will stay, Mark, but they might withdraw their troops all of a sudden, exactly as President Duda saying there's absolutely no indication of this. What we know is that the U.S. next to Europe, of course, also has to take care of the Middle East, has to take care of the Indo-Pacific. Humanitas, only logical. At overtime, as we're building up, that U.S. will pivot somewhat more towards Asia, but I am absolutely convinced that also in the long term, there will be every strong conventional U.S. presence in Europe. Next to the nuclear presence, the nuclear umbrella, our ultimate guarantor.